So the second hurdle within the laboratory scientist endpoint assessment is the vocational competence discussion. So here you're going to be asked a minimum of 8 questions. That is in the assessment plan itself. And these will be, and you will be signed a Marshall independent assessor, just as you will before, but there won't be a technical expert. So this will be just the two of you talking through the different areas of the apprenticeship standard. So your preparation and understanding of those areas and the assessment criteria is really key. So the VCD will last between an hour and a maximum of 2 hours 15 minutes. So there's quite a difference there, but it will last a minimum of 1 hour up to a maximum of 2 hours and 15. You'll be expected to understand all of the other criteria that are based within that standard and be able to talk about them with examples. Now, this is a test of your knowledge and understanding. It is not a test of your memory. So you can bring any elements of your portfolio, your log, your competence log that you created with you. You can use them as examples. You can hold them up and discuss them. You can put them on the screen if it's over Teams. You've got that preparation. It's not a memory test. It's you discussing what you do day in, day out within your place of work and how that relates to the assessment criteria that were built into your apprenticeship. So although it is control conditions, the main control is the time and the areas that need to be covered. So it's not an exam conditions test that it says there. So questions is what you can expect. You can be expect the independent assessor to talk to you and ask you about how you manage the compliance within your internal and external regulations. It's one of the areas of the standard. It's there in the assessment plan. You can expect open questions around ethical practice and how you live up to the codes of conduct, and so on and so on and so on. And you can see why we're saying there's a minimum of 8 questions. So you could be asked 8 questions, talk about them really coherently, understanding yourself what the assessment criteria are and give examples around those, and then before moving on to the next. Or you could be asked a lot more than 8 questions. So that's what you've got to manage. The more you can give, the quicker it is, the more efficient the interactions are, and the more likely you are to cover everything that you would need to cover to get the very highest grade in the time allowed. So you've got to be efficient, get to the point, understand the assessment criteria and focus on the assessment criteria. Anything else we can't judge. We're only there to assess you against, yeah, you guessed it, the assessment criteria. So looking at this element then, one that does potentially trip people up, let's have a look at ethical practice codes of conduct. So every role should have some kind of company code of conduct. So every employee would have that. You'd have your staff handbook and codes of conduct expected. Lots of areas of the scientific sector also have an element of ethical practice, whether it's research, whether it's testing, whether it's humans or animals, those kinds of things. They will have that clear either internal or external guide on how you should behave ethically and how you should conduct yourself and your work. So looking at the fail criteria, you would not be able to explain your organisation's ethical practices and code of conduct. To pass, you will be able to explain that and provide an example of it within your own organisation. So that shouldn't be too difficult if you're prepared. So we've got, again, a bit of a description about things that you might need to consider. Moving on to distinction, you should be able to explain how compliance with your organisation's ethical practice impacts on the business, why it's important, what would happen if you didn't, how that might impact, how you benefit, how others benefit, leading through to the team, the organisation, the patients, potentially the users of your product. Those are the kinds of things. So have a look at this slide. Ask yourself, are you aware of your company's codes of practice? Have you read them? Can you give examples of how that fits in with how you work and what non-compliance would look like? So for each of them, you need to ask yourself questions and prepare appropriately. If there are examples that you want to give that are not in your logbook, in your portfolio, that's absolutely fine. You're not tied in to just what's in your portfolio. If you can think of other examples of you in the workplace performing, that's good evidence, then you can use that. That's absolutely fine. So this is another difficult one. Lots of you might not really think you have customers, but you do. You have people who are internal or external customers. They have requirements, they have expectations, they use your work, and they benefit from the things that you do. So have a think about that. I'm not going to go through the criteria, but you can read it on the screen. But ask yourself, do you know the difference between an external and an internal customer? Do you know what the expectations of customers are, again, internally and externally? Can you give examples of how important it is for you to give good customer service and how you've done it, what the impact of that was, and perhaps what the impact would be of poor customer service as well? Focusing all the time on those criteria. Now, if you've prepared in advance and you get asked about meeting internal or external customer requirements, you will know what to say, you will know what your examples are, and you can lead that conversation. Level 6 conversation, remember. Okay, so as we said before, the timelines, it can last over 2 hours, so it's important to be prepared. It's important to have water with you, and make sure that you've got something to drink and that you can use that to help you just to compose yourself from time to time. Think about the grade you want. Think about the level of work you need to put into it in order to get the best possible grade. If there's 8 areas, we've said, well, there's about 15 minutes per area is what you need to think about. Can you give examples and talk for around 15 minutes each time? If your examples are very good, yes, it might not need to be that long, but stick to the point. So build your answers, demonstrate your depth of knowledge, show us that you know why you do the things and what the impact is of those things that you do. Be very aware of your own environment in terms of regulations, quality, codes of conduct, leadership, innovation, continuous improvement. Look at the areas and prepare. Okay, so just to reiterate that, preparation is key. We've created a document that should be able to help you with this. And you don't have to use it. It's not mandatory, but it's, we think, a really good tool for you to use. Effectively, it takes you through the different criteria in the different areas of the standard. Remember, there's 8 for this VCD. And then there's a brief description for you to write what it is that you're going to talk about against the pass and distinction criteria. If you want to, where is it located in your portfolio if you need to lean on it to show your assessor? So you're effectively planning for your VCD in a very focused way. You use the form, you bring it with you on the day, you've got something to base and build your answers from. As I said, it's not mandatory. We really do recommend that you do use it though. Okay, so there are some other resources, and just to give you a whole kind of picture of what they are you need to get from us, there is the overview of the whole of the Level 6 Lab Scientist apprenticeship standard. There is a synoptic project guide, project plan, which we talked about towards Gateway, and the submission declarations. You've got VCT guidance, and then that VCD detailed log, which was that last document I showed you. So in terms of grading, obviously we will take the evidence away from your assessment day. The independent assessor will grade you. It will then go through quality assurance processes with Marshall assessment, and eventually it will lead to, within 15 working days, 15 is the maximum, so quite often it will be 15 days as it goes through all the different processes internally at Marshall, so you won't be expecting it anytime sooner than that. But we will pass your grade over to your training provider, who will pass it on to you, and we will claim certificates on your behalf, and that will be through the apprenticeship service, and you will get your official certificate through from them. And this can take up to around 10 weeks in busy times. It can be faster, but you should probably expect to wait for about 7 to 9 weeks, as it says there. Okay, once you get your grade from us, it will not change. There may well be issues that you have, and let's say it didn't go as well as you wanted to, and there's some questions. There is a formal process for any of that. Otherwise, this is the process that you can expect to see from us, and that's the way in which it will work. If there are any questions, clearly you can ask us along the way. So hopefully you'll find the endpoint assessment process for you quite a rewarding one. You'll be able to demonstrate and show off all of the brilliant things that you've learned during your program, and just what a valuable asset you all are to your employers. Okay, very best of luck, and thank you very much.